Dog. Trash. Hallway trash. Yeah, and a heavy. That was some intense hallway trash.
What's going on? Hostage is dying already, though, getting wrecked.
Hostage is an idiot.
Yeah. Where did I go?
Serious trauma detected.
Yeah, but 674, or, yeah, 674k crit to the head.
Agent down.
I like it. I like it. That guy's gonna tick out, watch. 11 seconds. Pink.
High-risk target detected.
Whoa, he's got two of those things. A double-barreled RPG launch. Crazy.
Hello everyone and welcome to another Division 2 video. In today's video we're going to be talking about my newest build that I'm running with, my Ridgeways Pride Status Effect DPS Hybrid. I'm really liking this build. You can really melt people on Heroic, Challenging, whatever the game throws at you. All the gameplay you just saw was done on Heroic in the Summit. You can see it performed very well. in challenging missions, in heroic missions, in the open world, it absolutely melts as the spaces are much smaller. You're able to get your hive into places. Plus, you know all the spawn points, right? So you can predetermine where you're going to throw your hive and get it right out there. But without further ado, let's get right into the build. All right, so here's the build, right, guys? But let's start by talking about the Ridgeway's Pride chest piece. All right, this is the Ridgeway's Pride. I get very lucky with my roll. I got really nice rolls, max weapon damage, max critical hit damage, and just shy of max critical hit chance. All right, so let's talk about the talent Bleeding Edge. Bleeding Edge, shooting enemies within 15 meters applies bleed to the target. Repair 3 to 48% of your armor per second for every enemy that is bleeding within 15 meters. Repair strength per number of bleeding enemies 1, 3%, 2%. You can see it. You get it. All right. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here. When I was looking at this, I didn't really think it was going to be worth this repair. Even after the latest buff, the repair from 3 to 48% is highly situational. But to try to take advantage of it, I've made the build the way I have, but what I'm really going for with this build is that first part of the talent. Shooting enemies within 15 meters applies bleed, right? That's what I'm banking off of. The repairing of your armor is very situational, and I mean, unless we have the bleed hive out, like you saw in the gameplay, how many times am I going to have 5 enemies around me? Not very often. And if I do have even 3 enemies around me at 12%, that is not going to mitigate the amount of damage that they're doing to me. So I tried it multiple times to get this to proc, to get into the 4 to 5 range, and I just got destroyed by NPCs. Don't bank on this second part of the talent. And because of this, I don't really think that the Ridgeway is a top tier exotic. But with this build, as you saw in the gameplay, you can absolutely melt people with the bleed that you apply to an enemy within 15 meters. Let's be honest. If I don't have the bleed hive, I'm not going to be shooting 5 people. Let's start with here. How many times are you going to have 5 people within 15 meters, right? But then I'm not going to shoot 1 and then not kill him and move on to another, shoot 2, not kill him, move on to another, shoot 3. No, I mean, we all do it. We all sit there, we focus one guy. I'm not going to run into or get in between, 15 meters in between the multiple enemies and not try to kill one that I'm shooting, right? It just doesn't make sense, right? So that's why I don't think that second half of the talent works. But let's focus on that first part, shooting enemies within 15 meters applies bleed, and let's go from there, because that's where this build really shines, all right? So with that in mind, we have paired this with the Technician. Again, spec'd into skill damage, not into skill healing. We then spec'd into SMG and LMG for this build. You can use whichever guns you prefer. Make sure you have an SMG that you're using. If you want to use Lady Death, it melts. I tried it. It's awesome, okay? But I wanted to use something with Sadist. I felt that was a better in slot because I don't want to be so close to them with the stacks and whatnot. And the Lady Death doesn't have good range. So that's why I opted to not go with the Lady Death, but if you can do it, maybe on some lower difficulty, it does melt. I had a lot of fun with it. All right. So, and then I had the Carnage here, just because it's perfect sadist. Okay. So I was happy to get a max rolled crit chance, crit damage, max SMG God rolled AUG from Paul. So thank you very much to Paul for that. He dropped this for me, and I rolled Sadist onto it. Sadist deal 20% to bleed enemies. After 4 kills, apply bleed. We don't need to worry about that, right? But we're going to get a bonus 20% weapon damage to bleeding enemies. That's key. All right. We are also using a 2-piece Eclipse Protocol, which gives us 15% status effects, and then I have status effects rolled onto both of them. Okay. Status effects there, right? But this is where this build shines, because the System Aggravator talent is a unique talent that isn't affected by having multiple pieces of Eclipse protocol. You can have one piece and it is active, okay? Amplifies all damage you deal to status affected targets by 30%. Okay? So let's talk about that again, right? So we're gonna shooting enemies within 50 meters, applies bleed. There's my status effect, right? I now am doing an additional 30% damage from anything. From my weapon, a skill, anything. I'm doing 30% additional damage. That's huge. Huge, okay? So that's where this talent is made to go with this chest piece. So if even if you don't make this build, make sure you have this talent on there, and you won't be sorry. I then have the firm handshakes. Again, I'm using the firm handshakes because it gives me 15% status effects. That's why having an SMG is important, because there's no other glove that's going to give you 15% status effects. Okay, so make sure you have an SMG. I then have a Grupo. That's max godly right there, right? Crit damage, crit chance, weapon damage. Again, trying to get my crit chance and crit damage up as high as I possibly can. Okay, because that's where you're going to be able to combo the status effects that you're doing with the amount of damage you're doing, right? And then I have a piece of Golan, again, for 10% status effects. This is a piece that takes some farming. It took myself and Rambo some time to find this, but critical hit damage and status effects rolled onto it, and then so you can re-roll the weapon damage there, okay? Key. It makes for a beastly. You saw in the gameplay how powerful that bleed is and how much damage that Stinger Hive does. It's because we have so much status effects rolled onto here. Sure, I could roll status effects onto my knee pads and get an additional, but I wanted to be able 15 meters. I'm in the shooting range right now, so I can show you what 15 meters looks like, because it's further than you think. But there's often times where you're going to be shooting outside of that 15 meters, so I wanted to make sure I could still hit decently hard even outside of it, right? So that's why I don't have the status effects on my knee pads. Okay, but this is the build, right? I also have a card custom here, just in case, but I don't use it very often. I pretty much stick with the AUG and go from there. I then run with the attack drone. Let's make sure our health, damage, perfect, right? And then the Stinger Hive, the Bleed Hive, like I talked about before. Stinger, perfect, right? This is the build. You saw in the gameplay how fast this thing melts. Now let's look at how far 15 meters is. So we're going to be here, right? We're at the range accuracy we need to go for. We can just shoot this 15 here. That's 15 meters. It's further than you think, right? Let's go over this one. It might be easier to see. 15 meters. That's pretty far away, everybody. Okay, that's your range. That's your range. Get used to it. Spend some time in here and get used to how far 15 meters is away, because it is pretty dang far, right? I don't do any testing in the range because it's not accurate. You don't get the procs, etc. It's not as accurate as it's doing in the real world. But so let's look at that. Let's recap real quick. We have the technician. We have our status weapons. We're doing an additional 20%, right? So the way I use this build, right? Use your hive to deny areas of likely path, right? So that way, you saw in the gameplay, they run into it. You then get the bleed. You can usually take down a gold bar with the bleed alone, but melt him quicker by using your gun, because as soon as that Stinger Hive hits him, you're then doing an additional 20% to him with your gun via Sadist. You're doing an additional 30% to him via the System Aggravator here. And you're killing, you're demolishing. That's an added 50% weapon damage to a bleeding enemy. It's huge. It rocks. It kills. Plus, you have the bleed to them, which is also hitting very hard. If we look at the stats, right, here we go. So my bleed damage is about 500k here, but when you're actually in the game, it ticks for up to 700k. Okay, that's the straight damage with the Stinger, right? Bleed damage hits for again about 70k. It says 56 here, but it's more in game. So, and then the bleed duration, this is huge, 11 seconds. So you can initiate that bleed and they can run away. They're gonna die. Okay, let them run. They're going to die. 0.9 second refill speed, which is huge too as well. Really gets you up there any quicker. And remember, with you have 3 skill tiers here, and that's all you need for 0.9 second reload. It's back quickly. You're back in it. Has a 200-second duration. This is huge. It's huge, right? Our attack drone. This can be switched out for anything you want. The attack drone can be used with a turret or used with the healing drone, maybe, if you feel like you need a little bit more survivability. I run the attack drone because, remember, system aggravator, an additional 30% all damage. So my drone is now doing 30% extra damage to that individual. So again, hitting for about, in-game hits for about 60k or so, 50-60k with the drone. It's huge. When you're shooting at them and your drone's shooting at them, you're just wiping. You're rinsing them. Okay, gold bars doesn't matter. Get rid of them. Get rid of it. Get them out. Get them out, as the doc would say. Okay, get them out. And that's why I run the attack drone. But again, you can use whatever. You need a little bit more healing. That's perfectly fine. Run with the healing drone or a chem launcher or something like that, and it'd be perfect. But I also use this to kick guys out of cover. As you saw in the gameplay with this build, especially on heroic, I play from cover. So I need to be able to kick those guys out of cover. So I activate my drone, send the drone out, kick those guys out of cover, get that bleed on them, get that extra 50% damage, and bring them down. All right. So that's the build, though, guys. I have been enjoying running this build. I need to give a huge shout out to Rambo. He sat with me on Saturday and kind of talked through this build with me for most of the day. And then we went on a farming spree. I had a few of the pieces already, but we had to go find this golden piece, and he helped me out a lot. Also, to Paul, who, like I said, dropped this SMG for me. So huge shout out to those two guys for helping me out, and thank you all very much for your continued support. If you like the video, please like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more content from myself, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.